I would like to call to order the May 2025 meeting of the Colerain Township Zoning Commission. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And welcome to those in attendance, township staff, and my fellow commissioners. Just as a friendly reminder, if everyone present could silence all of your devices, please. Ms. Klein, can we have a roll call?
Mr. Bachman.
Here.
Mr. Hauser.
Here.
Mr. Westfall.
Here.
Mr. Wilson.
Here.
Ms. McMullen.
Here. Okay, commissioners, presented before you tonight are the minutes from our previous meeting. Does anyone have any edits or comments on the February 18th, 2025 meeting minutes? Okay, seeing none. Ms. Klein, can we have a motion and a second, please?
I'll move to approve the minutes.
A second.
Thank you. Ms. Klein, now it's your turn.
Mr. Bachman.
Yes.
Mr. Hauser.
Yes.
Mr. Westfall.
Yes.
Mr. Wilson.
Yes.
Ms. McMullen.
Yes. All right. Next, we would like to welcome members of the public to address the Zoning Commission with any items on tonight's agenda. However, if you are planning to speak during a public hearing, we will invite you to the podium during that respective hearing. Is there anyone who wishes to speak? Okay. And for the record, please state your name and address.
Carrie Davis, 8364 Royal Heights. I came a few years ago and thanked you for your service, and I watch you often, your meetings, and I want to again come forward and thank you for your service. I find your deliberations, your considerations, your respect for the residents. I said it then and I'll say it now. There isn't one of you that I think would not be wonderful trustees. And if our Board of Trustees exercised your deliberate actions in the way you guys think things through, I think we'd be in better shape. So I invite you, I beg you to run for trustee this year. We have 2 seats available. And I think any one of you would be excellent and bring a whole new demeanor to our township. I will point as evidence of your skill and your insightfulness that many of the things that you guys have decided that were overturned by the trustees have blown up in their faces with problem after problem after problem and money after money after money. And so I think you guys are well-versed and able, capable leaders for this community, and I encourage you to run for trustee. We might not like what we get if someone who doesn't know this community runs. Other than that, the only thing I would like to say, just so you guys have for notice, like I have called Mr. Peters 9 times asking for information of your actions as a board regarding the Pool Road driveway, and the township refuses to return my calls or respond to my public records request. And they will not give me anything on what you did with the Pool Road Castrucci property, or not Castrucci, Joseph property. So if you have any power to encourage them to answer questions for residents, I wish you would. And thank you again for your service.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Please come.
Any subject?
Yes, as long as it's not anything to do with the public hearings, we will speak on those separately.
I'd like to speak about Wawa. Good evening.
And for the record, would you mind stating your name and address?
I live at 4296 Rayanne Drive, adjacent to the lovely Wawa development plan. Not a 5-minute clock?
No.
And can this be a question and answer, or do I just talk and you listen?
If we have an answer, we can answer.
Okay. The reason I'm here is I do believe there's right and wrong. I'm a lifetime Colerain resident, came out in 1956. But I want to make this short and not long. So I'll make it as short as possible because I have way, way too much information. And I do believe there's what is legally right and what isn't. But this is what part I want to address to you this evening. Sunday, I sent for my last, hopefully my last time, an email to all the trustees, to the township, to, to also someone from Wawa. And this time I also sent it to the news media. Besides what I put in print, I put in pictures of what has changed in the last 5 or 6 months. In the last 2 trustee meetings I appeared, I pushed the 5-minute limit, but since then, nothing has happened. And I do have 5 months of emails, text, phone messages, and hundreds of photos. You probably remember, if you can go back to September of 2023, in this meeting, you went through all the information and what I consider the final development plan, plus you added the other requirements. But on the slides, and I remember before I get to the slides, there was a conversation between you and I think it was Mr. Miller that said Wawa could not do anything detrimental or negative to the adjacent us people on the south residents. And if you go back to that meeting, you'll see those exact statements. So the problem is I have at this point is this is now starting to affect me physically, emotionally, and I don't want it to affect me financially. I would like the township help. That is what I've been trying to get for 5 months. And because of the 2 trustee meetings, nothing has happened. So let's fast forward from the development plan that showed the slides of what they could do, what they were going to develop. There were also slides of a landscape buffer. I'm trying to paraphrase. Went from like 30 feet to 20 feet to 10 feet. And then there was an extra slide that says, well, let's add another 5 feet of landscape buffer, or I don't know what it meant. But let me tell you what has happened. There is landscape buffer is 0. They came to the fence line. They went below grade level. I have photos of it, 2 to 3 feet down. They have corrupted the root system of trees that are, I don't know, 40, 50, 60 feet tall, adjacent on my side of the land. They've also changed the flow of the water. The water came from my land. There's a swell, and they're taking some of the water. They're taking water from some of the lands, but on other property lands, they're adding extra water, all right? But those items that I just addressed right now, that's really not been addressed through the trustees or anybody else, because the big thing that you can see is there were a berm, 10 or 15 feet added. There was now it's called earthworks that was added. Now, in numerous communication, I've been told that buffer, that earthwork was approved. Of course it was approved because it was sent to whatever it is, soil and water. But something happened between September 2023 and 11 months later with plans that are dated August 14, 2024, that has been very difficult for me to obtain 11 months later. It is now included in the plan that shows this berm, that shows this 30 or 40-foot mound that is higher than the houses next to it, that the pools are adjacent to the property. You got to see it's ugly. But my question is not whether or not the berms or earthworks were approved, is how did that get shoved into the plans? I don't consider that a minor change. I consider that a major change. Trustees aren't doing anything. So I'm bringing it to you because on the township site, there's no information besides your name of how to contact you. So this is my contact with you. So my question is, and I want to be happy and we're positive, I don't want to go after anybody. I don't want to fight with anybody. I thought the township was on the residents' site. Wawa's out of state. They're visitors. All right? They're not part of the community, even though their slide said, oh, we're kind to our neighbors and we love this and we love that and we're doing anything. They want profits. So, let me end with this. You need to look at it. It's ugly. It's trying to be made nice with grass seed, but how they did not haul all this off and tell you about it, I'm clueless. So, if zoning can't do anything, if trustees cannot do anything, if the township is just not really addressing, the questions of the problem and can't do anything, what is the whole point? I mean, if Wawa can do what they want, why are we all here? And we need your help. That's it. Thanks. Unless you have any questions.
First, can you give me your house number again?
4296. And when you drive down the road and you see that big hill, well, I'm the house I'm the house that has the 10 or 15 foot berm behind my lot. And the houses next to me that have pools 20 feet from the fence line come out to this 30 or 40 foot hill. I mean, I'm stressed out. I'm sorry.
Hi. Couple questions for you. Assuming it's still an active site, so things are still coming and going.
Absolutely.
For this big wall of dirt, is the expectation that Wawa is removing that dirt? Or can you explain what the
Wawa has
berm?
applied for and been approved by the Hamilton County Conservation District to keep that soil on site as part of its earthwork that they did when they developed the detention pond.
So it's gonna stay there?
It's going to stay there.
And the Hamilton County approved that?
Yep. Here's the approval letter right here. He has a copy as well.
Does the township have any say in what?
We have no say whatsoever. We do not have geotechnical engineers on staff here. All of that work, as I've explained to him multiple times, has been, you did your work with the preliminary development plan and the final development plan. And once the developer receives the zoning permissions, they go to the county for earthwork and construction permits. And so it's out of our purview at that time. That's not within our regulatory jurisdiction. And so all that's been transferred to them. They've approved it. They're out there monitoring it on a regular basis. Just last week or week before, they were actually taking some of the soil off the top of it. They had a machine out there. They took some off. Now, I don't know why they did. It is a little bit shorter, but they re-rolled it with grass and planted that. And so part of their jurisdiction is determining what the slope is, how high it is. They've given all the approvals, received another email last week confirming that all of that's been approved by the county. So there was a meeting by the Hamilton County Conservation District today. You were advised of that meeting that you could have attended and spoken to. I don't know if you were able to go.
I was not advised.
I can show you the email if you'd like me to, because I was copied on it as well. So
Love to see it.
your complaints are with the county, Steve. We are sorry that you're not liking what you're looking at your backyard, but we have done everything that we could do within our jurisdiction, and then your complaints need to be directed at the county if that's what you want to do, because they have the jurisdiction over the earthwork. Specifically, let me just read, since you asked. The zoning resolution governing this project specifically addresses earth mounds, requires that they shall conform with the grading requirements of the authority having jurisdiction, that being the Hamilton County Conservation District. And so We provided copies of the permits that say, here are your permissions to do this. Specifically, the permit states this: the mass earthwork and proper slope construction is to be performed under the observation and guidance of a state of Ohio registered professional geotechnical engineer. That's not Colerain Township. To ensure that the proposed construction does not adversely affect the stability of this site and proximate properties, structures, and slopes, and is completed in accordance with the approved plans and geotechnical engineer's recommendations. So that oversight for the water flow, the slope stability, everything is ongoing. They're monitoring that on a regular basis. And so it's an active construction site. They're still working on it. Now, the slope, that's still under the county's purview. They may or may not change it, but that's where your discussion and complaints need to go to. Because you've done your work as a zoning commission, and then all of the work, then the permits by the developer go through the county.
Well, I understand what you're saying, but I understand the confusion. Because the site plan that was approved had contour lines on it. We all looked at it, we all talked about elevation. I remember talking about the wall, I remember there was some up, there was some down. So without question, when these people left, there was a plan that we approved that had contour lines on it that had some reference to how tall a mound was or was not gonna be. No question about it.
Okay.
That obviously changed to have that huge mound out there, without a doubt. Now, where I guess the question is it's the position I'm hearing of the township that contour issue is no longer in the purview of zoning, that responsibility now has been, because of what it is, of mounding and earth and water flow and contours and so on and so forth, that is no longer an issue of the township, it's an issue of the county. The county has the jurisdiction on that issue. That is
correct.
That is your position.
Can I say not no longer? It was never. So any irrelevant information that's on a site plan when I review it, or Ms. Klein or Ms. Petty or you guys, we don't take that irrelevant information that's outside of the purview of zoning into account, because I don't know anything about slope. As Mr. Miller said, there's no geotechnical engineer here. So it's not that it's no longer with the county and it's out township and it's out of our hands now. It's not something we ever could or did review.
Saying that, there was a lot of discussion about that. There was, because I know I was in the middle of that discussion. So I think as a learning tool for all of us, if that's not something that is under the jurisdiction of our review, and you don't have the expertise, I think we need to say, let's don't have this discussion. Because A, we can't regulate it, and B, we don't have expertise to know what we're talking about. Would the staff agree with that?
Agreed.
Well, the commissioners are free to ask any questions they'd like.
I understand that, but now we put ourselves in a bit of a pickle, because I know I was adamant about the walls and reviewing the elevations, because frankly I did that in my past career, so I knew a little bit about it. And now it's changed dramatically, because when I drive by, I see that mountain, I'm like, oh, I guess they're just storing dirt. I guess they're just storing dirt. And now I'm hearing, oh, that's going to stay. That is a change. That's a relevant change. And I understand that that we as a township are saying, well, that's not really what we do. But I think somehow the communication, as I'm just now getting caught up, I understand the confusion. Now, I've not been to meetings. I've not had emails. I've not done anything. I drive by it and I see it. I'm like, oh, I can understand your frustration, and I can understand the communication of that it's no longer it's not in the purview of the township, and you think it should be, but it's not. And now I guess the question becomes, where do you go to get your answers? And it sounds like it's the soil.
Hamilton County Conservation District.
Okay.
I went to the soil, talked to them, came out to the house. They said their job is to approve what they were handed of the 14/24, 11 months later. That's what they were handed. My question is, doesn't it appear like it's sleight of hand from September 2023 to August 2024 of, the man stood here and said this was a quasi-something with an attitude, the Wawa kind, quasi-judicial hearing. And he said, we spent thousands of dollars for this engineering plan and this development plan and everything else. You telling me the engineers did not know of how much soil that they were gonna remove to put that station in and what they were gonna do with that soil? Don't you feel, I feel like I was misled, okay? And this was a deliberate action to hide. Now, we're still talking about the mounds, the earthworks. Right? I've got to go back also to, what about the zero, okay, landscape buffer? They came up to the fence. What about the destruction that may not show up for 2 to 5 years of my very large trees?
But that was discussed.
Huh?
That was discussed. I remember us talking about,
A landscape buffer?
Yes.
no, that was absolutely discussed.
And
Come to my property.
I don't want to come to your
Dimensions.
property. I'm telling you right now, in the meeting, that was discussed, that they were going to grade right up to your property line.
right,
Well, what's it mean by a landscape buffer?
the landscape buffer is what they're gonna put in after they're done with the construction.
Okay.
The trees that they will put in as the buffer between your property and the existing buildings. That is the landscape buffer.
But
Well, and there was discussion about a fence, and we made them go from
Right, wall.
6 to 8 or whatever. There was a wall because of the
talked
grade
about, right.
changes. All that was discussed.
Right.
Right, and the wall was a condition that was
We
added.
went to 12-foot fence.
burn at my property, and they don't plan on putting anything in.
Well, yeah.
Right,
that-
so it was approved. It was gonna be a little sunken. There was going to be a dirt mound, not a mountain, or the Great Wall of China, as you're describing it, I guess. And then have a privacy fence on top of that wall is how it was approved by the commission and by the trustees.
So the current plan that we've looked at together shows, well, at least it was it was one of your neighbors down the street, Mike,
Blackburn?
no, so right now, according to the plans that we looked at that were approved in the final development plan, there is the fence line, which is the property line. Then there will be a 5-foot buffer. There will be a 12-foot fence. And then there will be trees that'll be planted along that fence line. And they're going to go down past Mr. Schnebly.
Which side of the fence are the trees gonna be put?
They're going to be put on the north side of the fence.
So that,
So that,
so the customers don't have to look at the fence, but we do.
The
The fence was something
fence
that the
was
residents asked for.
Okay.
not only asked for, but wanted it higher, and we made that
Maybe
modification.
12 feet, yes.
Right.
the fence will stop and turn north. It's running west along the property line from Colerain Avenue parallel to Rayanne. And it'll get to about halfway into
Shy of my
Mr.
property.
Schnebly's, just shy of yours.
Yes.
And then it's going to turn
North.
kind of north. And then Wawa's going to continue with their trees all past Mr. Schnebly's property.
And the mound is,
There's none of that on the landscaping.
No, there's not. I have transmitted your concerns to the Wawa management, and they said, we will continue with that tree planting for his sake. So they're gonna go the extra mile, plant some more trees along that buffer to create a buffer for him.
Go ahead, I'm
sorry,
sorry.
and the mound that we're talking about, the mound of dirt, it runs north and south, correct?
No, I think it runs east-west.
Does it run east-west? Okay, and how far from their property line is that wall?
The water amount.
Or that mound, I mean?
The mound. I'm not exactly sure where it begins. It probably peaks at 29 feet high, about 2 to 3 parcels down from him.
It's tall.
What is the purpose of this mound of dirt? I understand we're calling it earthworks, a berm. What is the purpose of this mountain?
I'm not sure it has purpose, which, David, you
Is
have
it
an
just
answer?
that the developer is not wanting to remove dirt?
I think that if we needed to know that, we should contact the entity that approved it, which is Hamilton County Soil and Water. Because I don't know if it was required for runoff. I don't know why they approved it. I don't know why it changed from when we were reviewing zoning things, what happened to appear on the plan. And I don't know that I was here when that was all reviewed, but we can't really answer questions because we never approved it and we don't know why it did appear on the plan.
And this
We
was
never
requested
approved it
by Wawa's, right?
Because it's not in our review.
It was requested by the developer.
I think we ought to look into the request and why it was requested.
And frankly, there's
Not that we can do anything about it,
Exactly.
but it may give us an answer to the question.
Yeah. And we've spent a lot of time trying to answer his questions and other residents' concerns. There's nothing we can do about it. We've approved Wawa from a zoning perspective. You guys did, the trustees did. It's been approved now. They've invested money in the site. And then Hamilton County approved what they approved. So we can't withdraw their zoning approval on something that's not zoning related. We legally can't do that.
So I think we need to have some lessons learned then for future development. Be more cognizant of how these plans are touching the borders of the residents. So if Wawa came to us for a third location, at this point, are they trustworthy or not trustworthy? They knew what we approved. They knew why. We had extensive conversation with them at this meeting and a couple of meetings. To then go behind and get this approved is concerning to me.
I don't know, let me add my 2 cents. I don't know that it went behind. I think they followed a procedure. I guess where I think the communication has fallen, and I guess I'm a little disappointed, is I know what, in my brain, we approved, and I know that mound wasn't on there. And it's significant. 29 foot is a significant mound. Why that didn't come back is maybe something, what I've heard from the staff is, well, we don't have engineers on staff and it's not what the zoning is. Then maybe we shouldn't show contour lines on drawings. You know, there's a lot of lessons here. Maybe this should have come back because I would love to know what the purpose is. If the purpose is we just don't want to spend the money to move the dirt because it's expensive, that's a challenge. That's a problem. That is really not a citizen problem. It's not our problem. It's their problem. But be that as it may, it's, as I understand, it's not coming back, and it's legally not going to come back. So I guess, sir, the answer to you is to continue to work on Hamilton County, sir.
Yes.
Sure, you can
It needs
show
to
it.
be, if we show it, it needs to be admitted into the minutes.
So you will have to email this picture.
You have,
Two.
it's the.
So
it's
we'll
been
make sure you
emailed to
know
all the
which one.
trustees on Sunday.
I can't see it, so I don't know.
I'll show it to you.
We'll pass it this way, then I'll go that way.
It's good size. I understand it. I can see it on Colerain when I go by there every day. I kept thinking, I guess they're gonna move that. I guess they're gonna move that.
This is taken from your yard,
Yes, from my roof.
from your roof?
I'm not the only to get up there, but I got up there anyway because I was so.
So we need to show Mr. Peters, please.
This is the one it was sent to all the trustees.
Okay. Yeah, just make sure that you email that to us so that we can put it on the record.
Who do you want me to email?
Do you have my email address?
No, I don't.
Okay. Mr. Miller? Do you have his email address?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the final thing is, it's like, it sounds like you're gonna have to accept it the way it is. So the one thing I don't think I have to accept is, what can you do to help me about the damage to the root systems that were going across the fence?
That's,
And why do I have to sue them?
that's,
Yeah,
that's something that we don't have control over.
it's,
And, you know, when they do construction, they're going to move whatever dirt they need to move. And that, what we do have control over is the trees that they plant back there, or grass, or whatever the buffer is that was agreed on, we do have control over that. But we can't do anything until the property is finished. I mean, we can't do anything right now about it.
If you could put your heads together and maybe come up with something different, I'd appreciate it, but I really appreciate more than 5 minutes of your time today and listening to me.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate you. Thank you. If it pertains, yes.
This is not my field of expertise, so please take it with a grain of salt. But from my field of expertise, this looks like fraud upon this board. I think they gave you a misrepresentation. It was a bait and switch. They told you it was going to be a certain way. Like you said, it specified the grading of the land to be consistent with the county approving it. You guys are in charge of aesthetics. They committed fraud upon this board. They committed fraud upon the residents, and they should have come back for a major modification in their final development plans, which are submitted as a whole. And so I think you guys do have the authority to bring this action back to you and make them answer for it. I also have a memory from my work with Rumpke that movement of a certain amount of land is considered, or ground is considered, a structure. So when you alter the terrain significantly at some specifications, it is a structure that must be approved by you guys. So that's my suggestion and my position. But like I said, I'm not an expert in zoning, but common law, this was fraud. This was fraud, and I think you need to protect yourselves and the community.
Right. Was there anyone else in attendance that wished to speak? Okay, seeing none, we will move forward. Item number 6, final development plan, we have none. So that brings us to our first of 2 public hearings on our agenda for tonight. The first is case CZC-25-2, a zone text amendment for cannabis dispensaries. And does staff have a presentation?
I do.
Thank you.
Okay, so our first case tonight is CZC-25-2. The request is a zoning text amendment. The applicant is Colerain Township on behalf of the Board of Trustees. It's at tonight's hearing, and this was worked on by myself and Ms. Petty. The proposed action is to amend Section 3, the land use standards of the Colerain Township zoning resolution, and Section 7, the glossary, to establish cannabis dispensary as a defined and regulated use, and to permit conditionally in avenue mixed zoning districts only. This aligns with the comprehensive plan because it advances economic development goals in the Imagine Colerain comprehensive plan. It repositions aging commercial sites. It creates a business-friendly, modern regulatory environment. It expands the township's commercial tax base. It reinforces health, safety, and community character, and attracts investment through clear policy. And those are all goals that we find in that plan. The key details of this dispensary proposal is that we would revise the use table to allow it as a conditional use in the Avenue mixed north, central, and south zoning districts only. We would add cannabis dispensary as a conditional use in those districts and remove medical marijuana and recreational marijuana references throughout the zoning resolution, including the related definitions and lines in the use table. We would create a new definition, which has been provided in your packet. We would allow licensed facility under state law, and we would not allow cultivation, processing, or on-site consumption. The maximum hours would be between 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. in all zoning districts, and only one of these would be allowed per 25,000 residents. We would require a 500-foot buffer between schools, parks, churches, etc., and a 1,000-foot separation between dispensaries if you do permit and if we end up with more than one. We would require a development agreement, and strict signage and site readiness standards are also included, which includes facade, parking, and signage updates to meet the standards of our zoning resolution, whether the building is existing or not. Staff findings, we spoke about the comprehensive plan consistency. And with the strategic land use implementation, this reflects a thoughtful land use strategy that concentrates sensitive uses in appropriate commercial districts. So this being along Colerain Avenue rather than White Oak or Groesbeck or somewhere that's a little bit more neighborhood oriented is definitely more appropriate. This is compliant with the ORC and recently passed Ohio law and Northbrook, Ms. McMullen. And this improves clarity and administration in the zoning language. Medical marijuana and recreational marijuana are getting to be antiquated terms, and this one combines them and allows streamlined permissions for both. Community protection measures, such as the distance between dispensaries potentially and parks and schools. And this also supports economic development diversification. Licensing medical dispensaries under control framework creates an opportunity to attract regulated revenue-generating businesses in areas in need of revitalization in the township, but without compromising the township's planning vision. And that proposal reflects the township's intent to remain proactive rather than reactive in addressing emerging land uses. So for that reason, staff recommendation is to approve the text amendment to add the definition for cannabis dispensary, remove outdated marijuana terms, add new use-specific standards in section 3.4.10. And when we do that, since we have section 3.4 in alphabetical order, we're gonna end up shifting all the other use-specific standards down. So we will need to renumber those. So I thought it prudent to mention that in the staff report. Ms. McMullen?
Thank you. So at this time, we need to open our public hearing. Can we have a motion and a second, please?
I motion that we open a public hearing for CZC-25-2.
I'll second.
Ms. Klein, can we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Bachman. Mr. Hauser.
Yes.
Mr. Westfall. Mr. Wilson.
Yes.
Ms. McMullen.
Yes. All right, so prior to the meeting, we had no one sign up to speak. I just wanted to check with the audience to see if there is anyone. Okay. And for the record, again, you'll need to state your name and address.
Carrie Davis, 8364 Royal Heights. I don't think 500 foot from a school is anywhere near adequate. I don't think 1,000 foot in between dispensaries is, it's just going to create a zone of issues. I believe that this is being passed not just for the money, but to serve the residents of Colerain. And if we locate this kind of dispensary on our border with Green Township, we are inviting people to come into our community for this product. I don't even know if it's possible for you guys to do it, but I would much rather see this in just the northern end so that we're not attracting new business, but still serving our residents. I don't know what, if anything, you guys can do about it. I know if I burn a bonfire in my backyard, the police can be called on me because of the smell and the smoke. I would love to see incorporated in our rules something that prohibits marijuana consumption in our parks. I don't want to smell it. I'd rather not smell it at the stoplight. And I don't know what power, if any, you guys have. Also, the advertising. I think one of the conditional uses should be prohibiting billboard displays, advertising. I don't know if you guys can do any of this, so I'm sorry if I'm way out of line. I'm just telling you what I want. But I don't want big billboards saying, come and get your cannabis in, Colerain Township. I'd rather they not be advertised in that manner, and maybe even a limitation on their signage. I don't know what we do with massage parlors, if there's prohibitions for them, but I think we should look at those rules and see how we can use those to minimize the impact on residents like myself who don't care what people do in their private lives, but don't want it on our public right-of-ways and in our public gathering places. But that's all I have to say on that.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak? Okay, commissioners, I open it up to your comments or questions for staff.
I just have a few. First, I guess, again, for David, probably for you, I know that when we looked at this last time, it was pretty adamant that the policymakers, i.e. the trustees, did not want to see this. So I want to know why the change in direction, because that's a pretty significant policy shift. The second question I have is, I do know that some of our neighboring communities, Forest Park for one, City of Cincinnati for two, do have dispensaries, so I wonder if there was any reach out to them, any findings by the police department of any issues that they may be having with those particular dispensaries, so I'd like a little discussion about that. And then my third question for you all is, I note and David noted it in his presentation about the 21 dispensary per 25,000 residents in the township. So my question to you all is, if someone was to ask today, what population number would we use, and would that be only 1, 2, or 3 cannabis dispensaries would be permitted, would be the question for you guys.
I'll just start with the last one. We're dealing with a similar limit right now, another question, and the population currently stands for Colerain Township at approximately 59,300 and some change. And so it would be capped at 2, and so we're not we're not rounding up
Okay.
to 75, and
Okay.
so there would not be a third allowed until we hit that population. And I think in the zoning text, it actually defines where we get that population number. So I think you saw that. And yes, we have reached out to, I think, most all of the neighboring communities that have these, that being Green Township is one that's close. Forest Park is another that we've reached. Sims, no,
They just heard this in 24, I think, didn't they?
yeah, it's not Sims Township. It's, yeah, I guess it is Sims Township. That we have reached out to them and how they have dealt with it. That's been done primarily through the township administrator, passed on information. And so at this point, we're still very early in the dispensary world, I think, of this recreation, marijuana. Medical's been around a while. With this law change, and again, brief recap, is that this law to allow adult use of recreational marijuana was a citizen-initiated law. They collected the signatures and put that on the ballot, and the voters passed that. And so it became law. The General Assembly has the option of changing that law. There have been discussions about them tweaking that with, in various ways. Some of the comments and requests are being discussed, such as being able to have, similar to open container with alcohol in the car. One of the proposals at the General Assembly would be to prohibit any marijuana consumption in a car, whether the driver is consuming or not. So it'd be considered an open container if anybody in the car is smoking. So there are considerations like that. And so the first question that Mr. Bachman asked, why the change? I think that part of the change, it's been with one trustee primarily, and I think a discussion with other elected officials that have dispensaries in their community, the repercussions that they've had, any impacts haven't been such that they have been so negative that they felt like we're not touching that. And so there was a reconsideration. And then looking at how the other communities have addressed it with development agreements with the dispensary itself, that has brought in some revenue that I think that that the trustee board is willing to consider to assist in budgetary issues that the township has.
Okay, so given your response of the 2, then two would be the cap today, and to get the 3, you would have to have an increase in population of approximately 15,000 people. So a long time.
60 to 75, 15,000. Yep.
So I think where I'm going with this is that your buffer requirements of the 500 for the park and the church and the library and the 1,000-foot in between respectively, I think you could absolutely broaden those and make those much more significant for only potentially 2 facilities for the next foreseeable 5 to 10 years.
We
Given the comments,
open to the commission's recommendations and
I
changes.
think you could triple those,
Yeah.
or at least 2.5. With only 2 in the entire township, I think there's plenty of room to do that. So those would be my comments. And by the way, the issues, ma'am, that you had on signage, the staff did a very good, I think, job here of talking about a master plan of signage, and all that needs to kind of be addressed and reviewed. So I feel confident that that situation or that element has been handled in the proposal.
That was Mr. Peters.
And Ms. Petty, can I note something? When this law was passed, Ms. Petty discovered the overall recommendation to follow the recommendation on the guidelines of this was the 500-foot boundary between schools, churches, public libraries, public playgrounds, and public parks. And it was also recommended to have 1 per 50,000 residents. So on the one about the 500-foot buffer, we took the recommendation and we actually made it a little bit easier for the dispensaries on going from the 50,000 to the 25,000 people. So we did one a little bit conservatively and one a little bit more loose. So we were trying to find a happy middle ground.
But for the recommendation of 2.5 or tripling it, as you stated, is that doable?
I think it could potentially limit some sites where this would actually be beneficial to the township. In my professional opinion, that's overkill. I think there are elementary schools that are technically 600, 700 feet away from Colerain Avenue, and limiting it for a whole radius of an intersection where it actually might be a great use seems not wise in my professional opinion. But the board can make whatever.
Well, the one that I
like.
that I think about is the new Colerain Elementary that's going to be right at Compton and Colerain. 500 feet is hard for me to imagine. You know, I don't go out there like 1, 2, 3 in it.
Right. And this can't be in planned districts, so that eliminates almost half the parcels on Colerain Avenue already. It can't be in overlays, so if we do any potential future overlay with Colerain and Galbraith, then it wouldn't be able to open down there at that point. So any PDs or overlays are already cut out. It can't be at Northgate Mall, can't be at Stone Creek. So we could end up limiting it so much that there's nowhere that it could actually go. And that's a fear that I have if we raise that number. But I do understand your point, Mr. Bachman.
If I might make a recommendation, if you wanted to recommend a certain distance of separation, it's a recommendation to the Board of Trustees, and they can take that under consideration as they consider what is being proposed. If we were able to look on ArcGIS and do a measurement of, say, where are potential locations and draw a radius around that, and it turns out there's nothing available, we could recommend to the Board of Trustees that we could advise them this distance is too far, it needs to be adjusted to X.
Or
Okay?
another option is to beef up the distance requirements, as I spoke earlier, and open up more districts. So put it in planned districts, since it's conditional use anyway. So this board will have the review of those via the conditional use. You
Well,
as
the
staff.
conditional use would go to the BZA,
Oh,
right?
sorry.
Yeah, that's where we get a little
Okay.
fuzzy.
Okay, sorry.
Also, it's
Anyway,
really-
it'll be
No, it's
reviewed by
yeah.
another citizen-dominated group, as well as you as staff, correct?
Correct.
let's
Yeah,
get through
let
our
us have
discussion.
our conversation. So there is the opportunity in the light intensity industry. Obviously not the sanitary landfill.
No. Under the proposed sections in the staff report? Item
I'm
one,
looking at the table,
The matrix.
Right.
I'm sorry.
matrix of it.
It says it's in AMN, AMC, AMS, and then light industrial is prohibited.
Right, but going along with Mr. Bachman's thought, if we opened it up to more areas, would light industry, would that open it up? Or light intensity industry?
Just note from my knowledge of the zoning map, that would just open it up to Harrison Avenue, or Harrison Road. It probably wouldn't open it up much around Rumpke. So if you thought that was a good use for down there, that's potentially, it could become a conditional use for LIT.
Down in that area, it's generally just a bunch of strip malls.
Yeah.
But I don't think that ultimately solves what you are thinking.
Well, yeah, I don't have the data, nor does anyone in the room at this point, to know if beefing up those restrictions now makes it impossible to have a dispensary, A, and B, if it does, if you add an additional zone, for instance, industrial, what does that do? Does that add additional capacity, or maybe it doesn't either? You know, we just don't know. I guess I just thought if you only had two, and I understand it's got to be in a commercial zone, I just thought if we had only two, then in theory, you'd have a lot of distance to play with, if you will, that you could beef those up. That's all I was thinking. If now it makes it too restrictive and you don't allow those, then we've I think, not done what we've been asked to do.
With two, dispersing them is not difficult in 43 square miles of Colerain Township.
Wouldn't think.
But it is when you are then including your churches and your parks and schools and libraries, the other desired spaces that you do want to protect, then suddenly those are going to have more likely opportunity to bump into those, the further distance that you do stretch it.
All right. Any other comments?
I guess, Lori, just a question of how do you want to go from here? Do you guys want to approve it as is? Do you want additional data, table this, the data, let them do some GIS analysis? I don't know if there's a timeline that the trustees are after for this particular element.
I don't think there's a particular timeline. There is a public hearing scheduled for Thursday night of this week at the Board of Trustees meeting to discuss this with the presumption that it was going to come out of here with a recommendation. You could amend this. We do have two different buffers, as you noted, 500 and 1,000, so you can tweak those.
Mr. Bachman, would you be satisfied if we change them both to 750 to get a little bit more of a distance from the school and maybe a little bit closer to each other? That might make it where they have more
Oh, I
development
see what you're
options.
saying. Yeah, I think from a impact on our citizenry, I think the 500 is by far the most important element versus the 1,000, in my opinion. So I think that's a good compromise of 750, which gets the buffer up with regard to those inconsistent land uses of libraries, churches, and schools. And if we're talking about Colerain Avenue and it only 750 feet apart versus 1,000, I don't know that I'm losing a lot of sleep over 250 feet if we're protecting some of those other land uses that are more people present.
Right, and if the LIT district is the Harrison Avenue, you have St. Bernard Catholic School right there, so I think that buffer may take away the benefit of adding that into the conditional use table as well.
The LIT is very small. We just definitely didn't want it in the NBM, which is White Oak,
I
Groesbeck,
agree.
Northbrook.
I think that's appropriate, not to have them there.
And
They're
can,
clearly going to be desiring to be on a highly trafficked commercial district. Hence Colerain Avenue.
right. Can we talk for a second about what you envision for signage? I see the blurb about all non-conforming signage.
Yeah, I'd
but
love to.
What is, I know you would. What is permittable? I mean, we're talking about
You're careful, I'll get on my
non-conforming, but
soapbox here.
I know, that's why I'm asking.
Well, first off, when it was discussed about the billboards, and we can't regulate what's put on billboards because of a Supreme Court case called Reed versus Town of Gilbert. So we can't regulate content on signage. We have to be content neutral. So telling a billboard what they can and can't put on their sign is actually a First Amendment violation. Secondly, for signage, they would have to remove any non-conforming signage. So if they move to fictitious parcel 123 Main Street and it had a giant pole sign, they would be required to remove it. Even though it's a legally non-conforming sign, they would have to agree to remove that. Because what we want to do is, if we consider this an intense use, we want to lower that intensity by requiring less intense signage, parking lot islands. They also have to meet our standards on parking. So they can't just have a non-conforming parking lot with no parking islands. They have to meet our current regulations, and they also have to do that on facade. So they can't just take a square prefab building or, an ugly old building and move into it. They have to meet our architectural design standards. So signage just goes along with the parking and architectural design. So to answer your question, they could do anything that's allowed by right, a monument sign, wall signage. We don't allow any LED lights anyway, rope lights or window signs that say Kratom or anything like that. But we also had so they could do any kind of signage that's approved by right in the district.
So no feather sign, the
No.
stake
Absolutely not.
signs, whatever those are called.
They would need to specifically agree and to never put out any temporary signs. They could not even do a temporary banner in the way that other businesses could. So again, if they have their temporary banner out advertising their products, that raises the intensity on the site. So to level that out, we have a condition that they can't have any temporary signs, they can't have any window signs, and I believe it was carried over, they can't have any product visible through the window. Okay, so it's basically going to be a very nice looking building that meets our architectural design and parking standards, has all conforming signage and no display of products. The only way they could you'd even know it was a dispensary store is if they put the word dispensary in their name, and that was our goal. It's not going to be a flashy building that's painted lime green that has a bunch of neon signs in the window and feather flags outside. Never going to happen.
I do like colors and bright.
Well, okay.
All right. No. So commissioners, any other questions? Oh, are you good down there? All right. So we can have a motion to close the public hearing, please.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll second.
Okay, Ms. Klein?
Mr. Bachman,
Yes.
Mr. Hauser.
Yes.
Mr. Westfall.
Yes.
Mr. Wilson.
Yes.
Ms. McMullen.
Yes. All right, so at this time, is there anyone who would like to entertain a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve zoning text amendment CZC 25-2 with the modification suggested to modify the buffer for both between dispensaries and then between public buildings to 750 feet.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, and does everyone understand what we are voting for? Any questions before we vote? Okay, if we can have a roll call, please.
Mr. Bachman.
Yes.
Mr. Hauser.
Yes.
Mr. Westfall. Mr. Wilson.
Yes.
Ms. McMullen.
Yes. And the motion carries. All right, so we have and I hope the recording's not picking up all of my paper. I apologize if it is. So we have a second public hearing. It is case CZC-25-3, a zone text amendment to correct some technical errors in the zoning resolution. And do you have a presentation?
I do.
Thank you.
Okay, so our final case tonight is CZC-25-3. This is also a zoning text amendment, and it's the applicant is Colerain Township, and this was worked on by myself and Ms. Klein. The proposed action is to correct errors and inconsistencies identified since the adoption of the 2024 zoning resolution. This was done in 2006 and is pretty standard. When you release a new resolution, sometimes you realize that things are spelled wrong or not worded exactly how you intended. Some things are inconsistent. So we're just kind of correcting those things so that we can have consistent enforcement of the resolution moving forward and ensure that the zoning resolution aligns with the 2021 comprehensive plan. We had an overhaul of the zoning resolution, which was adopted on October 10th, 2024, and we did that based on the goals of the 2021 comprehensive plan of transparent and adaptable regulations, support for redevelopment and neighborhood scale business, and modernizing our zoning tools for quality, resilient growth. These technical corrections help preserve the legislative intent and improve administration of the zoning resolution. So just to the meat of it, we're going to correct permissions for automotive fuel services and restaurants, remove the with without sewer designation in the rural estate residential zoning district. That was not meant to carry forward. We're going to align all development standards regardless of utility type on that table. Swimming pools were mentioned in two different places. That was an error, so we're going to clarify the barrier heights and types. There's a area highlighted where feet was used instead of inches, so we're correcting that. Decks, patios, and porches, we're going to clarify impervious surface limits and setbacks. We're proposing to require garages to be connected to a driveway to prohibit driving and parking through the yard. Clarify setbacks and rear yard coverage, and prohibit fencing on vacant lots unless serving a community purpose or meeting specific other criteria. We're going to propose that we make waste receptacles be stored on the same lot as they're used to serve. Correct a listing for unenclosed concrete pads, currently patios, global language corrections throughout the resolution, and standardize the tense and terms of conformity, conformance. Those were used out of place in about 13 sections. So again, this may sound like a lot of changes, but it's way less than we had in 2006. We will have a part 2 case next month, but this is the first round. I think there were 2 to 3 times that many in 2006. We have a lot more tools with the internet, so we've identified these few that will help enforce our resolution. So staff findings, it's consistent with the comprehensive plan. It corrects drafting errors and misclassifications. It preserves the legislative intent of this 2024 overhaul and complies with Ohio Revised Code 519.12. It improves administrative clarity, and it protects public welfare and development quality. So for that reason, our recommendation is to approve the text amendment to reinforce policy clarity, fix inconsistencies, and support sound land use administration. Ms. McMullen?
Thank you. At this time, we would like to open our public hearing. Can we have a motion and a second, please?
Move that we open a public hearing for CZC-25-3.
And I'll second.
Ms. Klein?
Mr. Bachman.
Yes.
Mr. Hauser.
Yes.
Mr. Westfall.
Yes.
Mr. Wilson.
Yes.
Ms. McMullen.
Yes. All right, so we do have 2 signed in. One, I think he signed not knowing that he was signing up for a public hearing because he has left the room. And then Ms. Davis, you are signed in? Okay. So knowing that, is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak on these? Nope. Okay. So commissioners, do you have any questions or feedback? Okay, hearing none. I'd like a motion to close the public hearing, please.
Make a motion to close the public hearing, CZC-25-3.
I'll second that.
Okay, Ms. Klein?
Mr. Bachman.
Yes.
Mr. Hauser.
Yes.
Mr. Westfall. Mr. Wilson.
Yes.
Ms. McMullen.
Yes. All right, and can we have someone make a motion?
A motion to accept the zoning text amendment CZC 25-3.
And I'll second.
Mr. Bachman.
Yes.
Mr. Hauser.
Yes.
Mr. Westfall.
Yes.
Mr. Wilson.
Yes.
Ms. McMullen.
Yes. So the motion carries. Thank you. All right, so we have a lot of nones on our agenda, so no informal concept reviews, no old business, no new business. Correct. No administrative reports. Announcements, I do have a follow-up question from last meeting. So it was mentioned at the last meeting that, of course, we were going to do the text amendments this meeting, but it was also mentioned that there was going to be an update to the zoning commission bylaws. Is that something that is still under development?
That is under development. That's a long-term thing that we're working on through this quarter.
Oh, okay.
So they haven't been updated since 1998, so we're taking a careful look at everything that's changed in the world since.
Okay. Thank you for
Thank
that.
you for bringing it up, though.
I had an issue, if you were done.
Yeah, go ahead.
My question is this to the staff. You know, we look at several projects and I kind of lose track of them and I don't see them going up. For instance, the car wash at Meyer, the car wash at Colerain, the gentleman on Springdale Road who was going to sell some cars and we gave him 5 or 6 or an area. And where I'm going with this is what would be helpful for me as I just kind of think about what we do and the development of the township would be some kind of an update from the staff as to here's where these projects are, or they didn't get financing and it's dead, or it's still under review, or it's at the soil conservation, or whatever the case may be. I think that'd be helpful, and wherever you guys put it, wherever you want in terms of administrative matters or whatever, but it doesn't have to be much. It's just this project is dead, this project is alive, or whatever. That'd be helpful for me.
Great recommendation, thank you.
So just on the record, the Meyer gas station was Zips, and they filed for Chapter 11
See,
bankruptcy.
didn't know that.
So that one I know.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anything else while anyone's putting out a wish list? Okay. All right. So our next meeting is scheduled for June 17th, and I'm assuming since we have June listed, we have a case?
We have at least the text amendment for technical corrections part 2.
Okay.
We could potentially have more cases, so we
Okay.
will be informed.
All
Keep you
right.
informed.
So thank you to my fellow commissioners, staff, everyone who was present tonight, and those who spoke. We hope everyone watching and present has a great and safe Memorial Day weekend. All in favor of adjournment, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Meeting adjourned.